Good day and welcome to Job Interview Green Flags, How to Tell if Your Interview Went Well live stream. I'm obviously glad that you've joined me in for these interview tips and recommendations because going on a job interview can be exciting, but at the same time quite stressful experience. While you can't ever be 100% certain which way the recruiter is leaning, there are some of the signs which could help you out. Some of the green flags that you could look for, and these signs will indicate that your interview is going well. If we haven't met before, I'm Marat from Emmotion. MyEmmotion.com, HR and career consultant. You can obviously look me up on LinkedIn. And on this channel, I help and contribute to acing your interviews, to growing professionally, to gaining confidence as a professional, and obviously learning to deal with corporate politics and difficult situations at work. First, I would like to ask you to say hello in the chat. Make sure you say hello. I'll be saying hello right back very shortly. I've had some technical difficulties in the past with my live streams, so if it's all working fine, if the video is okay, if the sound is okay, please thumb up this video. This way I am reassured that there are no issues with the stream. And I'll be saying hello right back just in a second. Let me see. I see Elvina, Atsa, Marie. Hello, I am very happy you are here, guys. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good Sunday. So in this video, I'll be going through 8 signs that your job interview went well. And I'll also be responding to some of the questions which you've submitted. Feel free to comment during the live stream or sending your questions. I'll make sure I'll respond before the stream is finished. Okay, going back to the subject. We can all agree that job interviews require a lot of time and effort. And once the interview is finished, we all start going insane, remembering every single aspect of the interview and wondering if it really went well and how good our chances are. I've done thousands of interviews and I've actually hired hundreds of professionals or even more from different parts of the world. And I will be happy to share some of the key signs with you that indicate that your job interview went well. So first, stop over-analyzing and stressing yourself out over something that you don't have any influence anymore. And the signs that I will mention today, 8 signs, will be helping you to feel more confident and understanding if you are seriously being considered for the job and if you could actually get the job. Let me jump into the first sign. The first sign is actually something very easily shown and something that can be easily evaluated. When the interview lasts longer than you expected. You know, your recruiter or a hiring manager probably mentioned how long the interview would be lasting for. Usually I tell the candidates, please make sure that you have 45 minutes or 1 hour, just to make sure that they know that their expectations are managed in terms of the timing of the interview, how long of their time the interview would take. So if you were in the interview for longer time, it is a good sign because generally recruiters and hiring managers are quite busy, especially when they are recruiting people. So staying in the interview for longer time, for longer than expected, means that the hiring manager doesn't really mind sacrificing their time to learn more about you. When the interview is taking longer than expected, it means that you are actually making a good impression on your interviewers. Also keep in mind that this can largely depend on the context, because if you are staying in the interview longer because you are repeating the same things over and over again. For example, if the hiring manager is asking you the same questions, it means maybe you are not giving clear answers, and in this case you are staying longer because you are not responding to the questions right. So the sign number 2 would be when the interviewer actually seems engaged and interested in the conversation, and the conversation turns more casual. If you think that it's relatively easy to talk to the interviewer, if the interview is more of a conversation rather than responding to the questions and hearing the next question again, if you actually feel that the interviewer is interested in everything you are explaining and saying, you should definitely consider also their body language. What is their body language? If the hiring manager looks bored, this is completely the opposite. But if they are actually trying to play it cool, to show that their body language is enthusiastic and they are listening to you, they are nodding their head, moving their hands a lot, if they're agreeing with you by humming or okaying, this surely means that they want you for the job and they are interested in everything you are saying. I find myself doing it quite often, especially I do it generally because I want the candidate to feel comfortable, but at the same time, it's a lot more engaging when the candidate is actually telling you something that interests you, that they are basically nailing the interview and you are hearing everything you want to hear. So the interviewer's body language can really give out a lot of information. And when you feel that the ice is broken, the conversation actually turns more natural and more casual. Of course, every job interview means all business, because you are there because they want to evaluate you. They want to know if you are a valid candidate for the position. But at the same time, if it turns into a more friendlier conversation, that is definitely a sign that the hiring manager is impressed, and they are actually showing genuine interest. And when they show genuine interest in everything you are saying, it means that they are considering and they are imagining you and visualizing you as a part of their team. Okay, let me go ahead and proceed to the next sign. The sign number 3 is when they actually mention that you would be doing what you would be doing in this role instead of what the selected candidate would be doing in this role. You know, generally as an interviewer, I try not to get the candidate's hopes up, especially for certain positions when I know that the competition is going to be complicated. I try to at least describe the tasks in a third person. Like this person, the hired person would be doing this and that, or if hired, the starting time would be at certain time at 9, for example. But if the hiring manager really believes that you are a good candidate, they can unintentionally show different word choice. For example, if the interviewer is saying things like, you would be expected to arrive at this time, or you would need to do this and that, instead of the selected candidate would do this and that. If they say when instead of if, like when you are selected or when you start instead of if you start or if you are selected, these are actually the signs that they are imagining you in the role. And they actually want you to get the full picture of the role, of everything what it requires. It usually comes out unconsciously. It obviously happens to me as well. I caught myself doing it a lot of time. When I interview a candidate that I think is a perfect fit, I immediately visualize them working for the company. So I start saying like things. I caught myself a few times saying things like, you will be working here and our HR department is going to set the orientation day for you, or something similar that can be, whenever I'm conscious, I'm obviously controlling this, but if I'm not, this can definitely escape. This is a strong indicator that the hiring manager, the recruiter, or any interviewer is actually imagining you and thinking about you as a person to fill this role. The next sign, the sign number 4. The sign number 4 would be when they start selling you the role. If you are actually, if you hear them presenting you the role as something attractive, as an attractive role, and they are answering to your questions in details, that is a good sign. Of course, every interviewer will talk about the role, but not every interviewer will actually make an effort to spark your interest. And if the interviewer is giving you detailed aspects of the position, listing all the pros and benefits of working for them, you actually made a good first impression. Because enthusiastic and clear answers to your questions also mean that the hiring manager wants to impress you. And this is a clear sign, because if they didn't want to work, they didn't want you to work with them, why would they bother spending their time convincing you and selling you the role, etc.? So if they are, let's say, how they are going deeper into selling you the role. If they are describing in a very specific way your day-to-day activities, if they are telling you about the day-to-day activities, if they are telling you about their benefits, everything, all the perks that the job is offering, if they are highlighting some parts of the company culture and telling you some inside info, sometimes they are actually giving you some clear information. For example, if they are telling you that you've got the skills and experience they are seeking, that is basically the best thing that they could do. For example, I always recommend, as one of the questions which you could ask the interviewer, is what does your ideal candidate look like for this position? And I think it's a good question to ask, because some of the interviewers actually might give you certain details that you wouldn't imagine them giving. If when they might say, you actually summed it up perfectly, or what you said, everything you are saying is exactly what we are looking for. You can't believe how many times it happens, and they are basically responding clearly that you've done a great job with your interview. So it's a good sign to look into, and it's a good question, obviously, to ask at the end of your interview. Okay, so continuing to the sign number 5, when you were introduced to some of your potential colleagues or even managers, you definitely know that the interview is going well when the interviewer starts introducing you to people that were not on schedule. Usually when they are quickly presenting you more and more colleagues, just to make sure that they speak to you a little bit, or when they are booking you and telling you, okay, you need to make sure that you meet with our CEO or with our department manager or other people that they might be booking to talk to you before you leave. This means that the interviewer really likes you and wants you to get the feel of some of the other colleagues, and vice versa, to understand what would their impression be, to make sure that they are also having a good feeling about you, because this is a way for them also to speed up the recruitment process. Because if you get to meet other people in the company face to face, they can also understand why you could be the right choice for the position. And this is definitely a chance also for you to understand that what kind of people they are. Would you be comfortable working with them? And it's definitely one of the top signs that you are nailing the interview, or that you nailed your interview. continuing to the next sign, continuing to the sign number 6. So sign number 6 is when you are going through closing questions and all the next steps are quite clear. Because if you are being asked questions like a possible starting date or how much time of the notice period that you have, these questions might be quite standard. But if they are saying, are you considering any other positions? Or how has your job search been going so far? How many interviews have you done recently? Where did you interview? Etc., etc. Such kind of questions can seem casual. They can definitely seem casual because they would make them in a casual way, just to make sure that the conversation is flowing. But this is definitely not the case. If the interviewer is asking you about your job search or your interest in other positions, it's because they are curious about their competition in hiring you. They might not want to lose your profile out to some of the other companies. So this is definitely a sign that your interview went well or is going well, and you are actually quite close. They might actually want to sign an offer with you before anyone else does. That's why they are asking how far you are in other recruitment processes. How far have you gone with another company? It means that they might want to sign the offer before the other company does. So while closing the interview, does the hiring manager also define the next steps clearly? If they give you clear information about the second interview, about the feedback timeline, when will you hear from them, and when the other next steps will be, the next stage, the more clear the next stage is, the next stage of the recruitment process is, and the more specific it is, the better are your chances. Remember that. Okay, continuing to the sign number 7. When the interviewer showed you around the office before you left, to me is definitely one of the key signs, because I never show anyone the office unless they are very impressive, unless they impressed me and I'm actually imagining them in the role, in the company, etc. It does depend on different companies, of course, because some companies are quite private about their working space. But if the interviewers are giving you a tour, if the interviewers are giving you a tour around the office, this means this is definitely a strong signal that they are happy with the interview and they want you to get familiar with the environment in the office. That's why they are taking an extra time to show you around the office and to even introduce you to more employees before you head out. It's because they are thinking about offering you the role. As I said, whenever I do that, I do that because I think the candidate might be successful, and it's also for me a way to see how this candidate actually interacts with other people in the office. If I show them around and we meet some other colleagues and I see their reaction and I see the candidate's reaction as well, it's a good way for me to understand how comfortable would this person feel with people within the company. And I definitely think it's also a good idea for a candidate to evaluate how good the atmosphere within the company is. If the working environment feels positive and comfortable for you in this case, because if you see that people are miserable and people are not nice, or any other signs that might put you off from this position or from this offer, then definitely keep it into consideration. Consider that seeing the office is so important. If you get this chance, this is probably the best way for you to get the inside scoop and inside info of the company. And it's definitely a good sign as well. As I said, it's a sign that you are doing great. Okay, sign number 8 is when you are actually following up, because I think today everybody is following up after the interview. And when you get an immediate response, and even a positive response, it's a good sign for sure, because interviewers meet with a lot of people or meet with number of people, and most of these people definitely send them a thank you email. And as a part of the interview etiquette, realistically, interviewers don't always have the time and capacity to promptly respond to all these emails or notes coming from, especially if they are coming from the candidates that are not impressive or the candidates that don't stand a chance. So if they take time to respond to yours, especially if they do it quickly, graciously, positively, this signals that they are interested. As I said, it's very common nowadays to send a thank you email to a hiring manager. So if they respond quickly to your email, and if they thank you in return for coming in, etc., this shows they are interested to the point that they actually dropped everything what they were doing just to make sure that they respond to you. And I think this is the clear sign that they want you for this position, that they want you for this role. As I said, I tend to say this quite often, that recruitment process can never be exactly as planned. And even though these 8 signs that I mentioned don't mean an absolute confirmation that you are getting hired, but they are definitely boosting your confidence, and they are definitely showing that your chances are quite good. And if after a while you actually don't hear from the company, make sure you get in touch with them yourself and request the feedback. Remember, we are dealing with people here, so unforeseen circumstances can always arise. That is why I always tell to candidates, if you haven't heard back from me, please follow up yourself. And I always tell to people that I coach, no matter what were your impressions, if your impressions were amazing and really extremely positive, don't get overexcited. Never get overexcited. Stick to continuing your job search, because so many things, as I said, we are speaking about people here. So a lot of situations might arise. A lot of variables come in and play an important part of the recruitment process. Things can change from one day to other. So continue your job search. Okay, these are the signs that I've discussed, and they will definitely help you out to understand how well you've done during your interview. And let me continue to the questions and answers. Let me see what I have here. Okay, I see Marcus said hello right back. 50-50 hope, good to see you. Elvina, thank you very much. Guys, go ahead and ask the questions that you might have, and I will be responding to them. I have some of the questions which I've gotten on my channel, and I'll be reading them out loud and responding to them. Okay. So the first question is, throughout my interview, I thought the interview was successful. They said that everything went well, but it's been 3 weeks and I didn't hear from them until yesterday, when they responded to my email saying that they are still interested. Why they are not convinced about hiring me anymore? Okay. Good question, and it's related to our conversation today. You know, you can definitely, as I said, you can definitely get the best impression, but things are never guaranteed. And as I said, it's good that you followed up, and it's good that you've received this feedback from the company that they are still considering you for the role, but you are continuing your search. As I said before, definitely important, because if they are actually pushing the date further and further, and if it's been 3 weeks especially, this means there might be another candidate which came into which they are considering as well. Because if the longer let's say the more time they take, the more complications might arise, and in this case they might get another candidate which they actually like and they consider for the role. So so they might be trying to win time, negotiating with another candidate, or still evaluating further the other candidate. That is why go ahead and continue your job search. It might always be a positive surprise for you if they eventually schedule another interview or actually make you a job offer already. Okay, let me continue to the next question. Okay, what else is the reason why the company never selected me after a good first impression? Also related to our conversation question. Let me tell you a couple of signs why, or a couple of reasons why you haven't heard from them. Especially if you've experienced positive signs, if everything, let's say your impressions were excellent and you heard from them as well that they had positive impressions on speaking to you, they might actually, sometimes they promote someone internally. Whenever internal promotion happens, they try not to give as much information about it, but it happens really quickly, and because the person is already within the company, they are working for the company, so they promote this person, and it means that your chances of getting the job are already non-existent, at least not this position. Another reason could be a lot of times the departments, the companies usually have budgets. They have budgets for people as well. Of course, we're hearing budgets for different roles. We're hearing budgets for different departments, especially finances, buying, etc. But HR department also have a budget, and when the budget gets cut, sometimes in the middle of the year, HR department decides, or the company decides, to cut the costs for hiring, and they instead of having 10 people to be hired during this year, they decide to cut it to 6, for example. And these are some reasons, especially the internal reasons of the company when it comes to budget. They would never tell this to a candidate. They would never tell that you're actually not going to get the job because we have cut the budget, or we decided to eliminate these positions. They might tell you that they decided not to hire or put on hold this position, but a lot of times it happens due to budget cuts. So it does influence a lot whenever the company decides to change their headcount or the budget for recruitment. Another reason why you made a good impression but they didn't hire you is when the decision maker had been switched or left the company. They might, your potential manager might have left the company, or they changed the department, or they were fired. It might also happen. So this means that this position is no longer a priority because they have something else a lot more urgent, which they need to make sure that is a position which might need to be covered, or the department that might need to be taken care of. This happens a lot more often than you can imagine. So another reason why you made a good impression and they liked you for the position but they didn't hire you is because they are not organized. This can also happen a lot more often than you expect. Companies that are not organized might want to hire someone at the beginning. They are really keen on hiring someone, but after interviewing some candidates and seeing what is going on in the market, and their expectations cannot match what they are finding in the market. So this means they were not planning this position correctly. This means that they didn't really plan this role right. And this means that the company is definitely not organized, because opening the positions and then canceling them and closing them shortly means that the company doesn't have, is not clear about their own expectations, about their own goals. So another reason why you haven't heard from them, even though you made a good impression. Okay, so let me proceed to the next question. Okay, I see Vasilis has joined in, and Adza just asked me a question. Hi Marat, I had an interview 2 weeks ago, and I have some questions about the job. Should I contact the company or just wait if they are interested? It's a good question. I think it's better that you wait, because if you had an interview 2 weeks ago, you haven't heard from them, they haven't given you any extra information about the role or any information about the next steps. This might mean that maybe they are not proceeding further with your candidacy. And what you can do, you can definitely follow up. You can definitely ask them feedback and ask them, how is this job search going? What are there any news about the recruitment process? So you can definitely follow up, but don't go too much. Let's say don't ask for the job details unless they invite you to the next stage of the job interview. If they schedule another interview with you, if they schedule the next step, you can definitely go ahead and ask, okay, listen, I was wondering what is happening with this role in terms of this and that. What are the responsibilities in terms of this position, or in terms of my future, my potential future in the company? So definitely something useful, and definitely something that will help you for your next interview. But if they are not scheduling this next interview, I would rather suggest you to wait. So if this was if this was enough, let me know. Otherwise, go ahead and continue and ask me the question, and ask me the following question. Okay, so just responded to Adza's question. OEU just said hello right back. Rula, is there situations where I don't necessarily have to follow up after a successful interview? They didn't call me back. If you haven't heard from them, did you hear from them or you didn't hear from them? If you heard from them and they gave you feedback, that is fine. But if you had a successful interview but you didn't hear from them, this means you should definitely get in touch with them and request this feedback. Request information on how is everything going, and when are they deciding, what are the next steps. Make sure you do that, because otherwise don't just leave this recruitment process just because they've never gotten back in touch with you. Follow up yourself. Okay? And let me know if you have any further question regarding this. I'm proceeding to the next question that I have in here, which was submitted. My position was eliminated by the company. What do I say in interviews? Should I tell them the truth? Is it perceived negatively by hiring managers? Okay, if your position was eliminated, you can definitely tell them the truth. I mean, the companies change, the structures change, positions get eliminated when the business changes. So it isn't your fault. You can tell them the truth, and the more clear and confident you come across with your reason, the better impression you will be making. So if your position was eliminated, just explain how this happened, explain what changed within the company and what were the structural changes. If there are more people, which were, let's say, laid off, and their positions were also eliminated, make sure that you say it within your interview, because it's going to make your response even more powerful. So it's definitely understandable as well that some companies are not always doing well. So some positions get eliminated. This is completely natural. Well, completely natural in terms of when you hear it during the interview and when the candidate actually comes up with exact examples, backs it up with information. So I would suggest you going ahead and telling the truth. Okay? Okay, so let me go ahead to the next question. The next question is, this is my first week at my job and my boss is already threatening to fire me, saying that I'm costing a lot of money to the company. He tells me that I'm doing a bad job and I'm not sure what I should be doing. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that during your first week, your boss is already threatening to fire you. That is definitely not a good sign. I would even suggest you to quit immediately. To be honest, if you want my honest opinion, you should quit immediately. Because if your boss is telling you this during your first week, it is clear that it's a complicated person and potentially an abuser. Yes, there are abusive bosses. So if your boss is an abuser, it's not going to get any better. You just started, so things will be getting even worse. I'm speaking from experience, and I've seen this happen again and again in different companies, in different departments. So if they hired you, it's definitely their responsibility to understand how much they can afford paying to the candidate. They can't tell you that they are paying you a lot of money and throwing it in your face during your first week at the job. Because, of course, they might be incompetent. Your boss might have been incompetent. He made a decision that he decided to offer you a lot more money than what they can afford. But that doesn't really sound right, because the recruitment process takes time. They definitely made the numbers. They definitely had the number clear. So it seems like he's lying to you about paying too much. And actually, he's lying to you. And it is a way for managers or for abusive bosses to establish a certain way of mental abuse and mental control even. Because he wants you to work harder, but he doesn't really know how to motivate you. And instead of motivating you, he actually throws these kind of comments into your face. So it's not a good sign. I would suggest quitting or continuing your job search and looking for another position. But if they actually thrown such information in your face during your first week, if they're telling you that they are paying too much money for your position, it's basically to make you feel unworthy, telling you that you are not worth of this money, and that's an abuse. So they will never be satisfied. Believe me, they will never be satisfied. No matter how hard you work, they will always try to make you feel guilty. So my honest advice, leave the company. And the sooner, the better. Okay? Let me proceed to the next question. Let me see. I see in here some of your comments. So Adsa, thanks, Marat. Probably I should have cleared the most important questions to make. Do you have a video about it? Okay, you mean the most important questions to ask the company. Yes, I do have the video about it. And as I said, what is important when you leave the company is asking some of the questions which are the closing questions, especially the next steps question, because it actually helps you to manage your expectations better. And the questions that you can ask questions about their company culture. You can ask questions about the position in concrete, to learn as much as possible about the role, to learn as much as possible about the department, about the colleagues, potential colleagues that you might be working with. The more questions you ask, the better it is, because your expectations are going to be managed a lot better. So definitely watch my video. I have a few videos, but the last video is titled exactly what questions should I ask at the end of the interview. So go ahead and watch it. It will give you a full list of questions. At least make sure you ask at least 4 or 5 questions, because one of them should be also the next steps question, because it is going to make your interview more successful, and it is going to help you manage your expectations while you are waiting for the feedback. Okay, so the next question. Okay, I see in here Vasilis. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Marat. Sending you hugs to Ota and Chloe. Okay, thank you very much, Vasilis. I'm very happy to hear from you. I will definitely tell them that. So I appreciate that. Okay, the next question. The next question is, what can I respond when I'm completely stumped by a question and I don't know the answer? This is actually a good question. It's a good question because anyone can be stumped, and this can happen to anyone, not knowing the answer, I mean. No matter how well we are prepared for the interview, not knowing an answer to a question can happen to anyone. And because there are certain questions, of course, make sure that the certain questions are always prepared. Some of your answers should definitely be prepared. Like, tell me about yourself. What do you know about us? Why should we hire you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? The list goes on, but these are the questions that you expect them to make. So you have this information prepared. And the question is, what do you know about the company? Is going to be ridiculous if you don't know anything, and if you are not giving answers. It's definitely something that they will reject you immediately if you don't know anything about the company, unless they are also unless they are struggling to find candidates, or this might be a startup or many other reasons. But most of the well-established or good quality employers will reject you for that. So you need to give good answers whenever the questions are regarding the company and regarding their product, their services. You definitely need to be prepared. But there are some questions, and certain questions, that the hiring managers or interviewers know. They know these questions are complicated. They know that these are hard questions, and they are trying to get to you, and they are trying to make sure that they catch you off guard. So it's understandable that you don't know the answer to these questions. And if you feel you've been stumped by the question, and if you feel that you don't know the answer for the question, just be honest and tell that. I know that the interviewer will understand if you've done a good job in your interview in general. If you've responded to everything else, if you've made a good impression with other responses that you've made, it doesn't matter that you don't know the answer to 1 or 2 specific questions. These might be hard questions, especially prepared to to catch you off guard. So don't worry about that. Okay, continuing to the next question, let me see. Okay, I see Rula says thank you. You are very welcome. Lee, is longer interview a successful interview? This was, you must have missed the first part, the part of the live stream at the beginning. This was number one sign. This is, especially, it's an easy sign to detect. The successful interview always lasts longer, or at least the timing that you've been scheduled for. Because if they take less time and it's successful, this means that you've definitely impressed them a lot, and it would actually show during the job interview. But if the interview flows well and you respond to all the questions, you get a positive impression, and the interview goes on and on, you possibly get introduced to some other colleagues or managers. All of these things take more time. So that means that they are dedicating and investing more time into your candidacy. So of course, a successful interview means that, or a longer time they spend with you, the more time they dedicate to your candidacy, the better, and the more successful the outcome might be. Okay, I hope I responded to your question, Lee. If not, go ahead and ask me the next one. Okay, so far, let me see if my question list as well, the list of questions that you've submitted. Okay, another question is, the next question is, I've been told that I'm not a good employer. I've been told that I'm not a good employee. This wasn't during my evaluation. I can't figure out whether it's two questions or just one question. No, it's, I've been told I'm not a good employee. My manager threatened to fire me. Should I look for another position? Okay, this is something that I've already covered. I think I've covered a similar question. So, but I will respond again shorter. If you've been threatened to get fired without any reasons, it's something that you should definitely face and speak to your manager, your supervisor, and ask what is going on. Ask why you are not considered a good employee and why you are not making a good impression, what is going on, why you might not be reaching your targets, whether you have targets, if you have your goals and targets defined. If you have, then you should be knowing if you are reaching these targets and goals. If you don't know anything about reaching these targets, if you don't have any targets, you can't really do much about that. You can't really know if you are doing well or not. So definitely ask for feedback, sit down, make sure that your boss gives you more information. If you've done something wrong, explain why it happened and apologize, of course. But if this is just a blame game, if this is just a way for them to pressure you in some way, or to give you some negative feedback without any reason, it's definitely something that you should consider, and it's definitely something that might be prompting you to look for other roles. And I would suggest you to go ahead and to do that. Okay. Okay then, I think I've responded to all the questions so far. This is your last chance. If you have any other questions, any other comments, go ahead and tell this to me. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate that you've spent this Sunday, the part of your Sunday with me. Always enjoying the live streams with you guys. So make sure, if you are not subscribed, make sure hit the subscribe button. And as I said, if everything is clear, if there are no further questions, I will be seeing you next week, next Sunday. So thank you very much for spending this time with me. Okay, I see that there is another question. Yes, Marcus, I have been selected for a final interview with a company. Your videos are great help. Oh, this is not a question, this is a comment. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good to see you guys. Take care and have a great Sunday.